අලුතෙන් SLT Mobitel Home 4G LTE connection ගන්නාට වටිනා tab computer සහ data දීමනා. අලුතෙන් SLT Mobitel Home 4G LTE connection ගන්නාට වටිනා tab computer සහ data දීමනා.
නව පෑස් සබන් සහ ක්‍රීම් ජාත්‍යන්තර ළමා රෝග පිළිබඳ විශේෂඥයන් විසින් සායනිකව තහවුරු කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
Tonight, time to compromise. The UNP leader calls for the government to arm itself with a deep reform plan before April IMF visit.
When the minister goes in on April 8th or 10th to meet the IMF, he must go with a package of reforms. They can't go and argue there as to what the authority is saying is correct or IMF.
A clear picture. British House of Lords member launches a book on refuting Sri Lanka's war crimes allegations.
I'm going to try and get those redactions lifted one way or the other because it is my Foreign Office, my Ministry of Defence, who have made the absurd statement that Colonel Gash has nobody to verify what he saw.
The long haul. The country prepares for 12-hour power cuts tomorrow as the push for alternative sources becomes stronger. Not done. The central bank cracks down on a forex dealer for offering higher than stated US dollar rates. All this and much more coming up on First at 9 this Thursday the 31st of March 2022.
Life boy shampoo chuti rupiah 70යි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Bringing you news from across the island, this is First at 9 and I'm David Ebert. Now, former Prime Minister Vikramaratha says that Sri Lanka is like a drunk person leaning on everyone for financial assistance. Speaking to Indivari Amawata on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24 tonight, Vikramaratha advised the government to head to the International Monetary Fund armed with a comprehensive reform package in April and shed the central bank's take on the economy if it wants to succeed. Former Prime Minister Vikramaratha says that Sri Lanka's chances of putting itself out of a crisis hangs in the balance and depends on whether the government is ready to compromise and accept the International Monetary Fund's view of Sri Lanka's economic state. He added that the finance minister's trip in April to the IMF should entail his presentation of a deep reform package and not an arguing of whose view is right.
Talking about Sri Lanka working with the international community, and what is your view about Sri Lanka getting closer to India? Is this concerning for you?
I think we are leaning on everyone. We are like a drunk person who's going everywhere. But remember, India is the immediate neighbor and they are worried. They are worried our spillover into India. That's what made them give us $1 billion. They are never given money to any country. And already they think about 2,000 people will come by end of this month. And these are from the north, and by April no one knows, so they want to prevent it, but I don't think they can go beyond $1 billion, so you be thankful to them. They are negotiating with the Chinese. Both of them have come up with the offers, but even the Indians and the Chinese say, look, these are temporary. You must do your reforms. We must go for deep reforms. And when the minister goes in on April 8th or 10th to meet the IMF, he must go with a package of reforms. They can't go and argue there as to what the authority is saying is correct or IMF. You take it, and that's why I'd like Parliament to have a look at what stand the government is going to take. Because there is a division here. Government says everything is all right, this is temporary. Central bank says that. While the IMF says no, this is a deep-seated issue and which has really got worse. So we have to decide between those two before they go up to IMF. If you take the central bank, you just forget, don't waste your time going to USA.
In addition, the former premier added that Sri Lanka shouldn't waste time playing a blame game and called for all political stakeholders to focus on solutions instead.
I don't think I asked you this question, but we've all tried to look at where this problem originated.
You can look at where the problem originated, but why don't you find where it's going? I mean, I will tell you my version, someone else, that's why I don't go to talk about it. As I said, no, we'll end up with Vijay. If he didn't come, none of these problems. We have a crisis. What is the way forward? What have we got to do? We have a Sri Lankan habit of when you have a crisis, we start blaming who's responsible. So I'm not going into that. Basically, we have a crisis and how are we going to resolve it? We must have some ideas. If we say the government should go, then you must tell us what exactly you are going to do for the country. At the moment, everyone must have a program or a policy. That is what is important. It's not the past, it's the present. What's the future?
Further, when Vikramaratha was asked how he would have handled the crisis if he was in power, he had this to say.
How differently do you think you would have approached this crisis?
What would I have done? Well, what we are going to do is in the manifesto. But we didn't get a mandate. But certainly there would not have been a crisis if I was in charge, because we would have dealt with the IMF. So there would not have been an issue as far as Sri Lanka was concerned in 2022.
Meanwhile, the Right Honourable Lord Michael NESBY PC has vowed to do all it takes to get the heavily redacted parts of the British military dispatches from Sri Lanka during the last stages of the war lifted. Speaking at the launch of his book Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained earlier this week, the House of Lords member says that the British government's claims on them being unverified was ridiculous. The Right Honourable Lord Michael NESBY PC, the British Conservative Party politician, who is also the joint chair of the All-Party Group on Sri Lanka, launched his book in Colombo on Tuesday. The book contains 19 chapters along with 54 pages of appendices of letters and memoirs written by himself to different political hierarchy in Britain in defence of Sri Lanka's firm stance against the LTT's brutality and Sri Lanka's genocide allegations. In his book, he attempts to present his proof that agencies like the UNHRC, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch and several other Western media agents have portrayed a grossly inaccurate picture of the island, the Sri Lankan army and its leadership. Having fought a long and hard war of his own to gain access to dispatches by British military attaché Lieutenant Colonel Anton Gash, he has finally received the copies but says that they have been heavily redacted.
I got the dispatches, 24, 26 pages. I went into the dates and found actually that was, for some unknown reason, very few in April or May, and it all finished on May the 18th. So all of a sudden, I said to the Foreign Office, well, what's happened to the dispatches there? He didn't go on holiday, did he? And then they said, oh, no, this is on a different computer. I said, all right, well, can I have it off the different computer then, please? And they were delivered. But there was huge redactions in. And I say today to you here publicly that I'm not satisfied with those redactions. I've reflected on it for some time now. I'm going to try and get those redactions lifted one way or the other. Not least because it is my Foreign Office, my Ministry of Defence, who have made the absurd statement that Colonel Gash has nobody to verify what he saw. When I thought the whole idea of sending a military attaché experience in the field of battle was adequate. And that's a ridiculous excuse in my... I don't think Professor Pearce or anybody in the current government or previous government is going to worry about what's in those dispatches. There was no evidence at all in those dispatches of the 5 key claims that were made. And just to remind you very quickly, firstly it said that President Rajapaksa had a stated policy to kill Tamil civilians. No evidence at all, according to Colonel Gash. A claim that the setting up of the 5 no-fire zones was a conscious policy to congregate civilians so they could be killed. Now, we all know that it was the LTT who brought the civilians down as a human shield. Then we were told that Sri Lanka's government was out to starve the tigers and the civilians. Well, we all know, any of us that have worked in the East, that the government civil service stay put on the ground. There is the go-downs. And there's a go-down, when I checked it, about it, immediately after the end of the war, half full of food, kerosene, and all the other things. So that doesn't stir up. And then the fourth one was that there was genocide. Well, how come best part of 300,000 escaped into the rescue centres like Manic Farm? That doesn't sound like genocide to me. And then the last one was that okay, they were rescued, but nevertheless, they were basically detention camps. Well, Anne and I went to, in quotes, this so-called detention camp at Manic Farm. We discovered the ICRC were there from day one.
The chairman of the Ceylon Electricity Board has assured that long power cuts can be reduced up to 4 hours if the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation provides diesel from the shipments that are expected to arrive tomorrow. Meanwhile, today 12-hour-long power cuts were approved by the Public Utilities Commission for tomorrow as well. In addition, in a bid to shift towards renewable energy, State Minister of Renewable Energy Duminda Disanayake revealed that a rooftop solar panel installation program proposed in the 2020 budget will commence next month. Last evening, the Public Utilities Commission approved 13-hour-long power cuts for today, a day after 10-hour power cuts were approved yesterday. The approval was given by the PUCSL due to the lack of diesel and furnace oil to operate the country's thermal power plants. The situation emerged due to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation's inability to clear a 37,500 metric ton diesel shipment anchored in Sri Lankan waters due to the unavailability of funds. In the meantime, the PUCSL has now approved 12-hour scheduled power cuts for tomorrow. Groups A, B, C, D, E and F will experience power cuts for 2 hours from 4 am to 6 am and again 4 hours from 8 am to 12 pm. In addition, this group will also experience 6-hour power cuts from 6 pm until 12 am tomorrow. For more details on the schedule, please log on to www.AdaDerana.lk or the PUCSL website www.pucsl.gov.lk. In this backdrop, CB Chairman MMC Ferdinando, who spoke at a media briefing today, said that some relief from the power cuts can be expected soon. However, certain criteria must be fulfilled for this to become a reality, he said.
ලබන දෙවෙනිදා අපිට එනවා ඩීසල් තොගයක්. ඒ ඩීසල් තොගය ඛනිජ තෙල් සංස්ථාව අපිට සපයනවායි කියලා අපිට වරුන් දෙලා තියෙනවා. දෙවෙනිදා ඒ ඛනිජ තෙල් සපුණාට පස්සේ මේ විදුලිය අපි මේ අද පවතින වර්තමාන තත්ත්වය එක්තරා විදිහකට සමනය කරගන්න පුළුවන් අපිට. එහෙම වුණොත් එහෙම අපි පැය 4කට වඩා අඩු ප්‍රමාණයකට විදුලිය සන්ධි කිරීම නවත්ත ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි.
At the moment, the Ceylon Electricity Board has been left without an option but to go with power cuts due to difficulties in catering to current electricity demand. With diesel-powered power plants facing fuel shortages for electricity generation, it was revealed that hydroelectricity power plants, which are usually capable of producing 1,338 megawatts, can now only produce 25% of that capacity due to the depletion of water reserves. With that being the case, the need to shift to alternative energy sources as soon as possible has never been more urgent. By 2024, the government plans to add 2,000 megawatts of power generated by renewable energy to the national grid. To fulfill this, the government plans to implement several projects, one being the installation of 5 kilowatt solar panels on rooftops of 100,000 low-income earning households. This was proposed by then Minister of Finance Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa in his 2021 budget. The project is expected to add 500 megawatts of power to the national grid.
පහුගිය අවුරුද්දේ මේක කරගන්න බැරි වුණා මොකද අපේ තිබිච්ච ආර්ථික ප්‍රශ්නත් එක්ක. අපි දැන් විදේශ ආයෝජකයෙක් එක්ක අපි දැන් සූදානම් වෙලා ඉන්නවා. ඒ අනුව අපි ලබන මාසෙ වෙනකොට අපි මේ වැඩේ ආරම්භ කරනවා. පවුල් ලක්ෂයක් වෙනුවෙන් කිලෝවොට් 5 බැගින් තමන්ගේ වහල මත අපි විසින් එයාට ඒ සෝලර් පද්ධතිය හයි කරලා මාසෙකට රුපියල් 2500ක් අපි එයාට ලබා දෙන අවුරුදු 15ක් යනකම් අවුරුදු 15ක ඉඳන් අවුරුදු තවත් 22 වෙනකම් අවුරුදු 7ක් දක්වා එයා රුපියල් 7000කට වඩා වැඩි ආදායමක් එයාට ලබා දෙන්න. මම ඉල්ලීමක් කරේ ආන්නේ මොකද්ද? මේ සමෘද්ධි පවුල් වලට රුපියල් 1000ක් 1500ක් දෙන වැඩේ අපට බාර දෙන්න. අපි මේ සමෘද්ධි පවුල් ලක්ෂයක් වෙනුවෙන් අපි ඕනනම් 2500ක් දෙන්නම් ආණ්ඩුවෙන් දෙන මුදල ඉතුරු කරගන්න.
Speaking further, State Minister Desanayake also revealed another potential investment that will look to export power generated using offshore energy.
අපට ආව එක ආයෝජකයෙක් මෙගාවට් 5000ක් ඔෆ්ෂෝර් වලින් නිෂ්පාදනය කරන්න. එයාගේ බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? මෙගාවට් 1000ක් ලංකාවට දෙන්නත් ඉතුරු 4000 සිංගප්පූරුවට එක්ස්පෝර්ට් කරන්නත්. මේ වෙනකොට සිංගප්පූර වල රිනියුවබල් එනර්ජි ගන්න EU එක කෝල් කරලා තිනවා. ඒතර එයා සූදානම් වෙලා තිනවා ලංකාවේ හම්බන්තොට මුහුදේ offshore wind plant එක ගහලා මෙගාවට් 4000ක් ලංකාවේ ඉඳන් එක්ස්පෝර්ට් කරන සිංගප්පූරුවට. මම හිතන්නේ හැමෝටම ඊයේ තමයි කැබිනට් පේපර් එක අස්සම් කරේ. ඒ අනුව කැබිනට් එක අනුමත කරපුවාම අපට පුළුවන් අලුත් බිස්නස් මොඩල් එකක් හදන්න. අපිට ලංකාවට ආදායමක් ගේන්න පුළුවන්කම තියෙන අපේ මූද පාවිච්චි කරලා offshore wind පාවිච්චි කරලා අපිට විදුලි බල එක්ස්පෝර්ට් කරන්න පුළුවන් කමක් තියෙනවා නම් අපි ඒකට සූදානම්.
Meanwhile, 2 more shipments of diesel under the Indian credit line are expected to arrive in Sri Lanka in the near future. The Ceylon Petroleum says that the new shipments will be coming under the Indian credit line, and with the country's transportation sector being heavily dependent on diesel, private bus owners are now warning that they will refrain from transport services completely by next Monday if they are unable to secure diesel supplies tomorrow. Under the Indian line of credit, another shipment of 38,200 metric tons of diesel are expected to arrive in Sri Lanka by tomorrow night. With another similar diesel shipment expected on the 5th of April under the same facility, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation assures that there will be no diesel shortages in the country throughout the month of April. With the country's transportation sector being heavily dependent on diesel, private bus owners now say that they find it difficult to provide services due to the situation. They warn that they will refrain from transportation completely by next Monday if they are unable to secure diesel by tomorrow. Meanwhile, taking the current fuel crisis into account, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has instructed his office staff and the staff of ministries under his purview, except for essential services, to work from home in order to save fuel. He said that the government is very sensitive to the plight of the people as a result of this crisis, and all possible steps are being taken to overcome the prevailing issues. And we'll be back with more local news right after this commercial break. Stay with us.
Big 3.
The Court of Appeal has acquitted parliamentarian Premalal Jayasekara and 2 others of charges related to the deadly shooting incident in Kahavatta, where 1 person was shot dead and 2 others injured during the presidential elections in 2015. The decision was made after the appeals were filed by Premalal Jayasekara, ex-provincial council member Lilantha Jayasinghe and ex-Kahavatta Pradeshya Sabha chairman Wajira Darshan, requesting that the death sentences imposed on them by the Ratnapura High Court be abolished and they be released from all their indictments. The verdict was delivered by the appeals court judge bench consisting of Nisanka Bandula Karunaratne and R. Gurusinghe. Delivering the verdict, appeals court judge Nisanka Bandula Karunaratne further stated no evidence was found of the 3 accused being in possession of weapons at the time of the incident and of them firing shots. In the backdrop, the trio was released and acquitted from all indictments. Meanwhile, the Wildlife and Forest Resources Conservation Minister C.B. Ratnayaka today announced that a new Director General has been appointed to the Department of National Zoological Gardens. Former Director General Shamila Rajapaksa, who faced much opposition from within the establishment leading to strikes and some controversial incidents, has been removed from her position. The Ministry of Wildlife and Forest Conservation has appointed Tilak Premakanta, former Additional Conservator General of the Department of Forests, as the new Director General of the National Zoological Gardens. The appointment comes in the wake of the removal of former Director General Shamila Rajapaksa, who took up the post in October 2021. Rajapaksa's tenure at the head of the Zoological Gardens was rife with controversy. This included clashes and disagreements with staff at Sri Lanka's National Zoological Gardens in Devala, who went on strike and seized the feeding of all animals at the zoo. The striking staff also had 2 primary demands, namely a 5,000 rupee risk allowance and the dismissal of some veterinary staff in the face of an investigation into alleged financial mismanagement by them. However, the protesters ended their 3-day strike after President Gotabaya Rajapaksa promised to look into their demands. In this backdrop, the outgoing Director General temporarily withdrew from duties on the 22nd of January, calling for a formal investigation into all staff involved in acts of sabotage and fraud at the Devala Zoo. She recently resumed her duties. More recently, another incident was reported at the Ridiyagama Safari Park, where a group of employees assaulted Dr. Priyasad Edrivardhana, the park's veterinarian. An independent committee conducted investigations into the incidents at the Devala Zoo, and the reports were submitted to the Cabinet on Monday. Following this, the Cabinet had recommended some solutions to ease the situation and also approved Rajapaksa's removal from her post. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka has temporarily suspended the permit of forex dealer Prasanna Money Exchange following revelations of the company purchasing currency from customers at rates higher than what licensed banks offer. The move comes into effect from today, and the public have been urged not to engage in any manner of transaction with the entity during this period. Following public complaints received by the Department of Foreign Exchange at the Central Bank, an investigation was conducted on-site at forex dealer Prasanna Money Exchange yesterday. The Central Bank investigation had observed that the company providing currency exchange services had offered higher exchange rates and thereby attempted to purchase foreign currency from its customers at higher rates than exchange rates offered to them by licensed banks. Further, the Central Bank says that their conduct is also in violation of directions issued to authorize money changes under the Foreign Exchange Act No. 12 of 2017. Accordingly, the Central Bank has decided to temporarily suspend the permit issued to the company under the provisions of the Foreign Exchange Act with effect from today, banning it from engaging in money-changing activities as an authorized money changer. The public has also been informed that any transaction with the company during the period of suspension will be considered in contravention of the provisions of the Foreign Exchange Act. Samagi Jana Balawega MP Kavinda Jayawardena says that he has handed over a letter to His Holiness Pope Francis, briefing him on the current economic and political issues faced by Sri Lanka and on the delays in delivering justice to the victims of the Easter Sunday terror attacks. In a video statement, Jayawardena said that the letter was handed over to Pope Francis at St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. Jayawardena was accompanied by the SJB's Home Agama Electoral Attorney at Law Eranga Veliange and several others during the visit. They have also called on the second private secretary to Pope Francis, Father Fabio Salerno, and engaged in a lengthy discussion seeking support and guidance to get justice delivered to the Easter attack victims and drawing the Vatican's attention to the need to rebuild the economy of Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, the Department of Meteorology has issued a heat index advisory for the western, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and the Galle and Matra districts. The heat index, which is based on the temperature felt on the human body, is expected to increase up to caution levels at some places in the western, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in the Galle and Matra districts. Under the caution level, it is advised that fatigue is possible with prolonged exposure and continuing activity could result in heat cramps. Welcome back. A public protest is currently ongoing in front of the Pangeriwatta Road residence of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The protesters are calling for solutions to the ongoing economic crisis and for the shortages of essentials to be finalized once and for all. Heavy congestion has been reported in the area. Meanwhile, parliamentarian of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Vikramaratha, says that the party is ready with short-term, medium and long-term solutions to alleviate the sufferings of the people. Speaking at a press conference at the office of the leader of the opposition yesterday, he said that informing or advising the government about the crisis in this country is like playing the harp to deaf elephants. He says that if the country is to recover from the current situation, it must do what needs to be done immediately. Vikramaratha said that discussions should continue with the International Monetary Fund, which is the right proposal for this. The next thing what he says is to suspend the debt due to foreign countries and said that it may take up to 6 months to negotiate with the lending parties before restructuring their loans, so an immediate discussion should be held to reach an agreement to suspend all loans. He added that if the government takes this step, it will be able to provide immediate relief to the people by eliminating fuel queues and stopping power cuts as well. Further, he urged that if this government is ready to take any action on behalf of the people, it is imperative that it takes such immediate action right now. The all-share price index of the Colombo Bourse ended in the red today once again, falling to 8,903 after losing 391 points following price losses in banking sector stocks. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks ended at 3,031 points following a loss of 165 points. Market turnover was 23 billion rupees and share volumes was 110 million. Diversified financials and the food and beverage sectors contributed heavily towards turnover. Taking the ongoing power cuts into account, the Colombo Stock Exchange has decided to restrict trading hours from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. both today and tomorrow. According to the new trading hours, pre-open sessions at CSC will be from 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. and open auction begins at 10:30 a.m. Regular trading commences at 10:30 a.m., but the market will close at 12:30 p.m. 2 hours earlier than the usual time. In the meantime, oil prices plunged today on news that the United States was considering the largest ever release from its strategic petroleum reserves, while OPEC analysts stuck to their existing deal for May output. The debate on the no-confidence motion tabled against Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan will begin today. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Federal Minister Fawad Chaudhry today announced that the Prime Minister will address the nation this evening ahead of the no-confidence motion against him. The no-confidence motion tabled in Pakistan's National Assembly by its opposition parties garnered 161 votes in favour and will look to remove Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan when proceedings commence and head into a vote in 7 days. Pakistan's opposition is confident that its attempt would be successful, with some allies of the PTI having come out in the open against Imran Khan. In this backdrop, the Pakistani Prime Minister has also summoned a meeting of the National Security Committee at the Prime Minister's residence, a day after he effectively lost the majority in the National Assembly, after a key partner of the ruling coalition joined hands with the ranks of the opposition. Khan further claimed that the opposition's no-confidence motion against him was the result of a foreign conspiracy because of his external policies, and funds were being channeled from abroad to oust him from power. The Pakistani Prime Minister is said to have presented evidence to back this claim in Parliament ahead of the vote. Tornadoes and heavy storms have whipped through the states of Alabama, Louisiana and Mississippi yesterday in the US, destroying many houses and damaging buildings. It is reported that at least 3 tornadoes struck central Alabama overnight, downing trees, damaging buildings and turning over a mobile home, with at least 1 person temporarily trapped inside. Heavy winds and rain damaged houses and trees, left residents without power. The Weather Service has also reported winds of up to 75 miles an hour across some parts of the tornado watch zone, stretching from New Orleans to Evansville, Indiana, and inch-size hail in Oklahoma. The Weather Service also confirmed a tornado in eastern St. Joseph, Missouri, Tuesday last night. However, no injuries were immediately reported and a damage assessment is taking place. And on that note, that's all we have for you tonight. We hope you join us again tomorrow at the same time. Good night.